this is Jenny from Just Being Me, and you're listening to the Learning to Love Yourself podcast, the show that inspires you to put yourself first.
Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness. Learning to love yourself on the path to happiness.
Welcome back to the Learning to Love Yourself podcast. I'm Jenny Field, the intuitive mindset coach, and today I'm with the very lovely Bree Fox. Bree, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bree Fox, and I am a lifestyle coach who helps women in business with their mindset, their movement, and their organization.
Ooh, sounds amazing. But you're here today to talk about the fact that actually you've had your own self-care journey.
Yeah.
So tell me about the moment when you actually suddenly went, do you know what, Bree? You've got to sort yourself out. Something's got to change.
I actually feel like I've had a couple of them and then maybe not been quite successful doing it. But last year was my biggest turning point. I was in a very toxic workplace. My mental health was, I can't even say on the floor because I feel like it was below that. It was really, really bad. I lost my mum last year and we didn't have a great relationship, which is part of where the epiphany comes from and everything like that. So there's a lot of grief in there, a lot of trauma, a lot of toxicity. And it was this moment of kind of like, what the fuck am I doing? If I've only got, my mum was only 56 when she passed away. And at the time I was 36. And I was like, if I've only got 20 more years left on this planet, I am not spending it like this. I am not having 20 more birthdays, 20 more Christmases with my children and being miserable and not looking after myself properly. Like I was doing things from the outside. I'm doing the things, but I'm not feeling the things. And that was what was very important to me. Like, yes, I could go to the gym, I could work out, I could see friends, I could play sports, but I didn't feel it. And it was that moment of, I've only got one shot at this life and I need to make it something that I'm happy with and not burnt out and not overgiving and not people pleasing and not sabotaging myself. And it was a whole kind of like wave of something needs to change. And I'm a big believer in, and I say this and this, and then like I get annoyed at myself. So I'm like, God, I sound like such a hypocrite sometimes because sometimes it's easy to say and help other people do things than it is yourself.
Yeah.
And it was like, nothing changes if nothing changes. So last year I was like, right, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do what I know I'm good at without anybody micromanaging me, without anybody pressuring my mental health, without me feeling guilty, without me not being able to look after my kids when they're poorly, without this overwhelming shame of I'm letting people down at work who actually don't give a fuck about me anyway. Yeah. Like, I'm not doing it anymore. And I just literally was like, I am done. And that was it. I literally handed my notice in, worked my notice and left.
Wow. Big step.
Huge step. I mean, I'd been planning it. I'd had an incident a few years ago where I'd got assaulted in a different place of work by students. I've worked in education systems for a very, very long time, behaviour units, things like that. And I still actually struggle to this day with this injury that I occurred 3.5 years ago. And I had some time off because of the injury. And throughout that time, being off at home more, because I was working full time, single mum of 3 kids, 2 dogs, all the rest of it. Like this time off, my kids thrive. And that was kind of like probably the snowball, the first part of something's got to give. So at that point, I requested to go part-time. So I'd started my plan, my exit strategy. I want to be part-time and then eventually I want to be self-employed. That was where I kind of started that with maybe very little belief, but I tried anyway. And, I put it out into the universe and I feel like it came to fruition. So yeah, and I just saw my kids thrive, me looking after myself. And then, I couldn't really do an awful lot because like I said, this injury, but I would walk every day. I'd make myself get out of the house every day. And I'd go walking for like a good hour or so around my village if I needed to, just so I wasn't in, because at the point I was in a fitness group and I was, doing quite well. And then I got this injury and it kind of knocked me back again and whatnot. I had to find a different way to look after myself to try and cope with the lack of, all the good hormones I got from working out and stuff that I just wasn't able to get at the time. So that was kind of like the starting point. And it was like, my kids thrive. And I was like, I want my kids to thrive. And working in behavior to the extent that I did, it's very much you're in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And because of like the trauma growing up, I've probably always been in survival mode. I feel more recently I've come out of it and I've done a lot of work and a lot of inner healing and things like that myself. So at the time I was just like, they're thriving with me around. I find it hard to come down. My kids don't get the best version of me because it takes me so long to decompress because I'm probably working later than I should be doing because I'm the people pleaser and I'm kind of barely doing what they need. And I'm their mum. Like they should be getting the best of me all, as much as I can give it. Not, no disrespect, but not other people's kids. My kids should be getting the best of me. And that was the starting point. And then like I said, my mum getting ill and wow, if I've only got 20 years left to live, things have got to change.
It's a really interesting thing. We see this a lot, that we put work before ourselves and our family. Excuse me. And our work at work, there's always somebody else that can do what we do. Somebody's
so replaceable. So replaceable.
Absolutely. And in most cases, you can be replaced within a couple of weeks anyway by somebody else. And yet we do the thing of, oh, no, I can't stay home and look after my child and I can't be home for my child.
Yeah.
And yet parenting is such an important thing to do because it's bringing up the next generation.
Yeah. And it's setting the tone of how they will be growing up and
Absolutely.
I found a lot of that. I felt like it's something that I've realized, like I say, kind of having left those workspaces and done a lot of therapy and journaling and holistic things as well. I abandoned my need for somebody else's needs. And that is just not right. And I'm very, like, I teach my kids because they're like, she's nearly 11, got a 13-year-old and 14-year-old. So we're at a very pinnacle age. And I study psychology as well. So like, I understand like the neurological pruning that happens in their teenage years and what they develop now is going to really lead them into, going into their adulthood and things like that. So I'm very aware that I want my children to develop healthy, good, wired connections in their brain that will benefit them for years to come. Do you know what I mean? Like the synaptic pruning that happens now is such a good point in life. So if you feel like maybe you've not done as much when they were little, you kind of get like a second shot and then it happens when later on in life, we don't get me wrong. We are always like pruning and things like that as well, like every so many years, but this is a really vital time. And I think being present in my kids' life, like now, I finish work at 3 p.m. when my kids come through the door. And
this is you being self-employed.
Yeah, it's me being self-employed. So I will now kind of stop work at 3 so that I can meet their needs when they come in. And then when they've done what they need to do and tell me questions, ask me questions about school or whatever like that, they'll go off and do their thing and then I can go back to work.
Yeah.
I am able to take that 30 minutes, 40 minutes maybe to be present in their life and to be like, how was school today? How was this? What did you do? Like my eldest is just picking his GCSE. So, we've got conversations about what he wants to study, how he wants to study, things like that. But me being able to do that is so important to me because it feels like I'm a present mum in their life right now when it's important. I'm not going to get this time back. He's not going to pick his GCSEs again. My daughter's not going to do her SATs and then go to secondary school. And do you know what I mean? Being able to do that is so important to me at this moment in time. Whereas if I was working in education, they'd be coming home. I'd be coming home after them. I'd be going to work before them and I wouldn't be around. And that's how it was. And because of the jobs that I did as well, like I say, my last job that I left that was very toxic wasn't as fight or flight. And because I was an outreach officer and I'd go into schools and I would work with like kind of kids and groups in like small groups. So I wasn't I wasn't based in just one school. So you didn't have that additional pressure that you've got when you're there all the time. But you have the mental workload of caring about these kids, wondering about these kids. Are they okay? Because some of the children we could work with would be, they'd break your heart. They'd proper tug on your heartstrings and you're coming home and then you're looking after your own kids. And all the while you've got somebody else's kid in the back of your mind thinking, God, I hope they're all right. Or, I'm not going to see them till next week. Or, do you know what I mean? And it was very emotionally exhausting. And the job I do now, what I do now, I love. And it can still be emotional, but I'm that kind of person. I'm very much an empath and I feel what other people feel. But doing this role allows me to look after myself. Like if I'm really tired or I'm really struggling, and as I said to you before, like I'm on the pathway to ADHD testing. So, and I've done that because I feel like I've got a lot of traits of it, and using some of the strategies that, you can use for being ADHD, they really benefit me. So if I'm overstimulated, I can take time out of my day to go and help regulate myself. But when I was employed, especially in some of the employments that I had, oh my God, no, I couldn't even go to the toilet sometimes. I'd be at work for 8-9 hours and you wouldn't even get toilet break.
And it's such a big thing, isn't it? And, I'm actually just starting to work with a few companies because they've recognized that actually if they give their staff some mental health support, a chance to go and talk to somebody confidentially, whether they're talking about work or whether they're talking about home, makes no difference.
Yeah.
And they're recognizing is that this makes somebody more productive.
Absolutely. Like I've always said, if you can be flexible with employees, if you can support them in different ways, they will give you so much more. So like, if there's been incidents with the kids or anything like that, if my employer's been okay about it, and maybe when I work part-time, let me shift my day around, I can tell you now on that day that I go back, I will be so much more productive because one, I feel better because I could look after my child, or two, maybe this comes from a thing of guilt, but like feel like I've got to make it up to them because they've helped me out. Does that make sense? If somebody helps you, you're more willing to help them.
And I was great, isn't it?
Yeah, I did some, it wasn't necessarily part of my role in one of my jobs, but I did some kind of like consultancy with teaching assistants. And I held 2 different groups and just gave them the space. I held the space and I just let them express what their concerns were, express what, their difficulties were, their struggles, all these kind of things. And it might have been like a certain child or a certain way things was run. But we had tears, we had, releases, we had all sorts of things. And it was just like in a school, at a primary school. And afterwards, I got so many people come up to me and be like, Bree, that was so beneficial. Like you just let us talk and you didn't interrupt and you just held the space. And I know one lady, bless her, her parent was ill at the time and she was really struggling. And I was like, well, maybe you need to go and spend some time with your mum. I appreciate you feel guilty not being at work. I was like, but if your mum's really this unwell, go spend the time with your mum. I said, it's your choice ultimately, but that's what I feel needs to happen. And this lady, after the conversations we had and all this kind of stuff, she went off sick to go look after mum, and mum passed away. And when she came back to work, I saw her again, a few months later. She's like, thank you so much for just letting me raise that concern because nobody would have listened to that. Nobody would have heard that if you'd not done that for us. And that is it. People just want to be heard. They want to be seen and they want to be validated. And if you can give people those 3 things, they will be so much better in themselves. They'll feel like somebody cares about them. But I think in a lot of jobs, it feels like you're just a number and like say totally replaceable. The turnover in like teaching assistants and other jobs, it's so high because it's so undervalued.
And I think that's such a big thing in people's lives because we spend so much time working, don't we? Yeah. But, with my children as they were growing up, I'm just like, whatever you want to do is fine by me, but I need you to be happy doing it.
That's what I tell mine.
And the reality is, I've worked with a few people who are going, it's all very well you saying find a job that makes me happy, but, I don't know what that is. What having. I said, well, until you do,
keep trying.
Keep trying for that, but go find something that makes you really happy outside of work.
Yeah.
So actually, you go to work, but then you're working so that you can go and do this thing that makes you really, really happy.
Absolutely. You need an anchor that's maybe like, especially when you don't have kids and you don't have the pressure as such to kind of have to provide. I mean, there's still a pressure to provide for yourself, but there's less of a pressure. So like, definitely you need something outside. Like you're saying about outside of work. I say this a lot about kids in school. You need to have something outside of school because if something goes wrong at school or work, you have an outlet. You have something to do. So like for me, basketball's always been my thing. I've played it since I was like 14 years old. Played last night. Like I play weekly basketball. And when I had a year out looking after my mum, it was one of the hardest years because I didn't have an outlet. But I physically couldn't fit it in with time and everything that was going on. Like I understood I had to take a back seat and it was just something I'd have to just kind of miss for a year. But yeah, like I do think, like say, and even if it is because that person wants to go on holidays, fine, go get a job. And if you just want a high paid job because you want a holiday, you don't enjoy it, but you're good at it, find what makes you want to do that.
Because that creates the value, isn't it? I do this because this thing is really, really valuable to me.
But I think
just being in a job and not going anywhere, not doing anything and just feeling is just not the place to be,
No, and a lot of people get stuck in jobs as well because they think they can't switch or it's too hard to switch or, society dictates you get a job, not necessarily now, but I know many years ago, depending on like, the age you are, it was you get a job, you stayed at your job until you retired. It was, he was loyal. That's what, a lot of companies wanted. They wanted the loyalty. Now, a lot of people are willing to switch jobs. A lot of people are willing to try something different or, go digital.
I think that employers look at somebody that's just stayed in one job for an awful long time as without ambition.
Yeah. I think they do
Yeah.
now, but I think previously it was seen as loyalty, wasn't it?
It was. So it's kind of switched around. So let's get back to you, Bree, because it's so easy to get.
Sorry,
It's both of us having this lovely chat. So you said to me right at the beginning there, you talked about the fact that you were self-sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
Did you recognize that you were self-sabotaging yourself before, or was it something now that you're looking back and going, yeah, look, that's what I was doing?
A little bit of both. Like I could recognize that maybe I wasn't pushing myself enough, but I think it was through fear. It was that fear of what if it doesn't happen because I've got kids and this needs to happen and everything like that. It was like I wanted more, but then I kind of had this feeling of, but why do I want more? Why do I deserve more? And that was where like the low self-esteem or confidence kind of came in. And again, that comes from like the trauma, you know, the negative kind of inner voice that I'd got. And then afterwards, it was very much more apparent where I'd been self-sabotaging, because I was willing to sit with the accountability, be accountable and say, yes, Bree, you have done this to yourself. Like, yes, other people have done, but I can't control what other people have done. I can only control the choices that I made. And I did. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did switch jobs quite frequently. One of my old friends used to be like, oh, you got a new job this week, have you? Because I would try and improve myself. But I think I was doing it in the wrong way. I was doing it in kind of seeking validation, because if I got this job at this thing and it did that, that would mean I was successful. And it really didn't. It just gave me this false sense of success, when in actual fact, I should have probably jumped sooner and got into what I do now, because I had all the skills and qualities. You know, I wouldn't apply for the job if I didn't tick everything on the list. Whereas, you know, we know quite often men will go for a job that they think they've got most of it on. Like, you know, I didn't put myself out there. I didn't push myself to probably what I was capable of. And to even now, you know, I quit last August, set up my own business last September. You know, there's still moments now that I catch myself. I'm like, Bree, what are you doing? Like, why are you stopping yourself from doing this? I even did like a little, because it's been the full moon. I don't know if you follow the moon and stuff, but like full moon and everything like that. Yeah.
Had a full moon event last night.
Yeah. You know, and I did like a release and ritual and stuff like that. And I'll still, every time I'm doing releasing, I'll say release self-sabotaging behaviors, because I still have some of those, you know, but I'm better at noticing them. I'm better at putting things in place to get myself out of it. And, you know, the only way
we're all on that journey, aren't we?
Well, and it's a journey. It's not
just it's
not ending.
You don't get to perfect. You never get to perfect. It's just an ongoing journey.
Yes.
So you mentioned that actually your self-care is about going for a walk, playing basketball. Yeah. But is there anything, because, you know, that requires an amount of time, bits of organization. Is there anything that in that moment where you go, okay, something's wrong, that you can do for yourself there and then to support yourself?
Move. Literally, even if it's in the house, I get up. If I'm sat in this chair, for example, working, or I've caught myself kind of like procrastinating or scrolling, or I'm, you know, self-sabotage, because procrastination is kind of a bit of how I do it. But I'm researching. No, you're not, Bree. Stop it. So like, I've got a post-it note that says take action, which just means move, just to get up. It might be to go stand in the garden if it's nice weather, which is not really at the minute. It might be, so I do actually, I've got like certain songs that, I mean, they're not always the same ones. Sometimes, you know, dopamine changes, but like, you know, I'll put music on really loud. I will go and dance or shake in the living room for like 2-3 minutes. And that can help just rejig everything kind of going on in my body.
Perfect.
So yeah, I blast out a song. Sometimes I put my headphones on and dance like a divvy, you know, but I just try and move. And then I also think, have I eaten? Because sometimes I can go a long time without eating, or I've not eaten something properly. Do you know what I mean? Like I've kind of snacked or whatever. So yes, it's kind of going back to basics. If I'm overwhelmed, I'll quite possibly on the sofa play some Hertz music, meditation music, frequency music, and set an alarm for like 20 minutes and just lay for 20 minutes. Just to kind of, sometimes I need to pause, but when I need to pause, I don't need to be scrolling because I'm not actually resting. So I try and make sure that I decrease my distractions as best I can, because I can get distracted really easily.
And, you know, that is part of being neurodiverse, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I can recognize that myself, but it is also listening to you and hearing how conscious you are of how you function.
Yeah.
Because we do tend to go through life just doing it.
Yeah. You keep on keeping on with not really knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. So we do a lot of doing, but actually we need to do being, because we need to have that balance, because we are human beings, and being part is the bit that says, oh, I like this. I feel like that. I like to do. It's the bit that gets you to know who you are, because when you're being, you can hear the inner voice.
Absolutely.
Rather than the external voice. And the external voice is all, the television, the boss, your friends, your children. They're all telling you how you should be. And that's where people get into people pleasing and imposter syndrome. And
because they're not doing actions that align with them, and they abandon their needs. They don't trust themselves. They kind of, like you say, they react rather than respond. So part of this for me was I sat and I wrote down, what do I actually like doing? What do I enjoy? What do I do for myself? So, I like taking a bath in the middle of the day because I don't get interrupted by the kids. Like, I love it. Stick a candle on, put some bubbles in, and just sit in the bath for a bit. I like reading, and I don't do it as much as I used to. I love writing. I love journaling. I love just putting my thoughts on paper. I love organization and stuff like that. But for me, that's what I like doing.
And it's so for me, I love a jigsaw. So there's always a jigsaw on the end of this table behind here. It's in a fold up thing and I can move it out of the way. But there, because actually there's sometimes where I'm working and I'm doing like you, and I just need to come out and I just give myself 20 minutes at a jigsaw, just to sort of get my head away from anything else, because I'm not thinking of anything else other than the jigsaw. Where does this bit go?
It quietens your mind, doesn't it? I actually like word searches. I love a word search. Honestly. But the thing is, I'm really quick at it. My kids get really frustrated because they try and do it with me. I'm like, no, this is my thing. Leave me alone. But I love word searches and music. So that's the other thing. Like you say, being neurodiverse, my head can kind of be like, whoa. I put my headphones on, put some music in, and then it helps me to focus because it stops me from being distracted.
And the really interesting thing is, because when you are neurodiverse and you identify all of these strategies to work with, to support yourself, actually sharing those strategies with people who aren't neurodiverse, and it works just as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's when you are neurodiverse, you have to kind of work on strategies, because the world is not, especially in the UK. The UK is very much set up for, you are this person that runs along this way. You step 1 centimeter either side of this line and we're all stuffed.
Yeah.
So we have to create strategies to be able to get ourselves into this space, to be able to function the way that our country functions. And therefore, so, like going to work, we have to be able to have
restraints.
So, during the summer season, I go and work in a local shop and because I like being in amongst it. It's a thing that just fills my cup up.
No, I like that as well. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Because otherwise you can just sit in a room and see nobody.
Be isolated.
But, I have to make sure that in that time, there's a space for me that if I get a little bit overwhelmed, because it can get very noisy and very busy. Yeah. And I, like you, are very much like, I want to get everybody to feel good, to have some space to be able to go and actually just go. And for me, I just go breathe fresh air.
Yeah.
Really deep breaths. And I'm lucky because breath work does work for me, and I breathe anyway. If you think about how you breathe, and then the brain thinks, more oxygen it gets, the more it knows you're okay. So, it is just creating. So even if you're not neurodiverse, being able to use those sorts of strategies.
Yeah. I actually require different strategies because different things will last for a certain period of time. And then again, it becomes boring, and then I need to flick it and do something different. So it'll be the same kind of thing. So maybe I'll write my day out hourly, what I'm doing, and then maybe I'll write a weekly planner. And do you know what I mean? So I've got different tactics and strategies, because sometimes doing one thing then just doesn't really hit the same. And then you have to kind of switch it up, don't you?
But it's also, for me, what's interesting is I think, all right, okay, do this. And then I think, no, that's not working, moving here. And sometimes I think, put that piece of music on in your ears, and I put it on and I'm like, oh, no,
I don't like this one.
Not okay. And so, it's not even knowing what you need, but knowing that you have. So I call it a toolbox.
Yeah.
Put all of these tools into a toolbox. And I imagine one of those old wooden toolboxes, with the handle on the top.
Yeah.
But so, no, there's no lid, because I don't want to have to struggle with a lid to get into my tools.
Fair enough.
So all I can see.
Oh, it's like a box.
Yes, like a box with a handle on the top of it.
Yeah.
And I literally go to my toolbox and I go, okay, we're going to try this and we're going to try that.
Yeah.
So
but how empowering is that, knowing that you've got that now? Because that is such a level of self-care that some people don't have. They don't know what their toolbox is. They don't know.
And that is where you come to somebody else. If you can't find out what your toolbox is,
Yeah.
you know, we have this wonderful thing called the internet, social media. You know, go the minute you start looking for something, a whole load of tools for supporting your mental health will come up. But it is definitely something that I support people with. It's my speciality in working out what you need for your self-care. And I'm guessing, Bree, that you're just about to tell me what you do for a living, not who you are. We've done who you are, but what do you do for a living now? And how do you help people?
So what I do is I help mainly women. I do help men as well. I get on quite well with men because I've always played basketball with men. I played like last night when I played in a men's league, but mainly help women who are struggling to find that, I call it guilt-free mum time, because, you know, a lot of the time, if a mum particularly does something, or just women in general, I think, but you know, that mum guilt is quite a profound issue in society for me, you know, and trying to do self-care. It's like, oh, but it's selfish. Yes, it is selfish, but it needs to be selfish because you've got to look after yourself, because if you don't, who is? And if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after everybody else around you that you want to. So my main 3 areas, we look at mindset, which obviously is very important. Like I say, looking at the toolboxes, what can they do? Changing what their outlook is on, like what society might expect of them or what somebody else might expect of them. We look at movement, and I say movement as in, I've stayed away from the word fitness because I think fitness has got such a negative connotation, particularly with women, because you think about your PE lesson and it was awful and all the rest of it when you was a girl. But movement is about functional movement so that you have longevity in life, because a lot of women will sit at desks like we are now, you know, go home and not really move their body in a way that is beneficial to them being in their 80s and still being able to reach for that tin of beans from the cupboard or sit on the toilet unaided or walk up those stairs without a chair. So we look at functional body movements and increasing, like, you know, our strength and our mobility and our flexibility. And then we look at organization, because that is just my geek area. Like, oh my God. Like, we look at organization, planning, preparation, all those things, like you say. So, you know, like you say, with a lot of self-care, a lot of it is you've got to plan and organize it, and you've got to prepare to be able to do some of those things. And we look at,
so if you've got children or you care for anybody else in your life, you know, your life gets taken over, doesn't it, by other people?
If you don't make time, you won't get time.
And then,
no,
if you're not going to make that time unless it's valuable enough for you.
And that's where the mindset comes in. So
and that it's a full circle, isn't it?
So it's like, it's a whole, that's why I say I'm a lifestyle coach, because it is a whole lifestyle approach. You know, we could focus on those things individually, but there will be a ripple effect, and you kind of almost can't have one without the other, you know, in some sort of way. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. And I just love it.
Now, we are going to put all of your links down below, but you have an offer for people.
Yeah. So I would like to offer your audience, I do something called an Empower Hour. So what it is it's, I call it an Empower Hour, but you know, they go on for about an hour and a half, not an hour. And I always give a bit of extra time. And what we do is we jump on the phone and we have a look at where you're struggling at the moment, or where you think you're struggling, because sometimes what you think you're struggling with, you're not actually struggling with, and it's something else. And what we do is you come out with a tangible plan to help you literally make a start there and then that day to change how your life is, and help you to begin to create and design your own life rather than just living and going through the motions. So we break the cycle of what you're in and we begin the next cycle in that Empower Hour. And I'd like to give the audience a third off. So rather than it being £99, it'll be £66.
Perfect. And how do people need to say that they found you through Jenny Field's podcast?
Yeah, so just, we know they've seen it on the podcast, then that, you know, that's fine. And we can put the discount in place and we can get you booked in for an Empower Hour and get you started on your new journey of creating your own path and not keeping in that streamline one. We're going to veer off and create our own lives.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Bree.
Definitely. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Are you feeling stuck? Do you want to be able to create a better conversation with yourself, but just don't know where to start? I offer a free 20-minute session to see where you want to be and how to get you there. Just click on the link below. Remember, it's free. Book your space. It could change your life.
Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to know more, you can find all the links down below. Oh, and don't forget to press subscribe so you can catch the next one. See you soon.
Learning to love.